horror fan, best friends, and ghoulish knights, and welcome back to the 24th episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror, super meta slashers, dark comedies, body horror, the adjacent to the horror genre, thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers and listeners, thank you for helping me reach my goal of 100 subs in 2022 on YouTube. It means so much to me. If you're joining us for the first time, please consider subscribing on youtube.com/@murderswithmertens. Oh yeah, that handle just rolls off the tongue, I know. Or if you prefer an audio version, check me out on your favorite podcast service and be sure to give me a follow and 5-star review if you are so inclined. It all helps get the word out. Last bit of housekeeping. We're going to start 2023 off with a bit of a bang, a 5-episode series focusing on the wonderfully meta slasher series Scream. Every week I'll be welcoming a special guest to talk about one of their favorite entries in the series and wrapping up just in time for Scream 6. Cannot wait. But kicking things off with, in my opinion, the greatest installment of the series, 1996's Scream, written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing the one, the only, Aaron Roetcisoender. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Good.
Happy to be here.
Good. I've been looking forward to this as well. You put out a post on the interwebs here late last year of people that you wanted to do some collabs with in the new year. And we had probably talked briefly on, Twitter or something like that, just about movies here and there. I think we're both people from various areas of the Kind of Funny community in one point or the other. And yeah, man, I'm happy we could make this happen. And for those who are visual listeners and viewers, you can see this wonderful new logo that Aaron was happy enough to create. This is like one of the coolest damn surprises I did. That's very special. Thank you.
Of course, man. And I made it just for fun while watching the movie, and I was like, well, I'll make this for Joe, see if he wants anything to do with it. If not, that's totally cool. But, I like doing stuff like that. It's fun.
No, it's much appreciated. And hold that up again, your list of podcasters and others that you would like to collab with.
So, like Joe said, I put a list out of people I want to collab with. It's not like the longest list ever, but Joe is officially the first one stricken from the record. And hopefully we will cross off many, many more of those as the year goes on.
HBO Max, looking at you, Brandon McKenna, get on this. Next. Yeah. Oh God, they're a ton of fun. So I hope you get to do something with them. So for those that don't know you, Aaron, who are you? What are you all about?
Oh man. Well, in short, I am a nerd. I like making people laugh. I love treating people with respect. It's not that hard to be nice. And I love spreading positivity to people. I love movies. I love comic books. I love pop culture, all of the above. If there's something ridiculous in any of those mediums, I have probably found it. And if I haven't, please share it with me. So here we are.
Awesome. Very recently you did quite the string of trailer reactions. So, people go check those out on YouTube. Those are a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun making the thumbnails for those, especially the one for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania that I did. So check that out. Actually, funny enough, I think the most recent one I did was the newest trailer for Scream 6. And for that thumbnail, we just recreated the original Scream poster. And that was a lot of fun. Nice. Yeah, I cannot wait for Scream 6. It looks ridiculously fun. I like what Radio Silence did with Scream 5. Love their work. Cannot wait for what looks to be an even more brutal sequel. It's a fun direction for the series. But speaking of, Aaron, what's your history with Scream and the Scream series?
Well, being a child of the 90s and making multiple trips to Blockbuster Video, shout out to Blockbuster Video. I'm a big scaredy cat when it comes to horror films. Or at least I was. I've warmed up to them a lot more in my later years, but I had brothers who loved them. So my older brother one night was like, "Oh, let us get Scream. Let us get Scream." And my parents were like, "I don't know. It's not like no, it's not that bad. Like you guys or you, it's too bad. You guys can't watch it." And one of the Blockbuster employees was like, "Well, honestly, if you are going to introduce them to a horror movie, this one is not as bad as some of the other ones are." So they're like, "Okay, sure." And then, my parents were still my parents. So they're like, "You guys probably shouldn't be watching this," but we got to watch the whole thing. And it's so funny and it's so scary at the same time. Obviously, watching it now, it might not hold up as like to the elevated horror of today, but it's so
Fuck that phrase. Fuck that
I know,
phrase
exactly.
into
Fuck
the
them.
ground. All
Yeah,
horror.
screw that.
All horror has something to say. I mean, sure,
Absolutely.
there's some absolute shit entries here and there, but for the most part, horror as a genre typically has something to say about something or another. It's kind of the point. It's a little subversive like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, man. I think this movie holds up incredibly well. In its original release in December of 96, I was a 17-year-old senior in high school. I don't remember if I saw this with my girlfriend or what friend group it was with, but I remember we were all obsessed. And there's a fun story to tell about that later on as we get to an appropriate point in the film. But yeah, man, I was the target demo. I was a high school senior, and all the characters are of the same age in this film. It's fucking perfect.
Yeah,
It's
man. Like and so I watched Scream when I was a kid, and then like the sequels came out. I didn't see Scream 4 for the first time until probably like 5 years ago, I want to
okay.
say. So like the other ones I had seen here and there, and I remember watching Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and they did the Scream 3 scene in that. And then finding out that they're actually in Scream 3 is great. No, sorry, future spoilers, but
Yeah.
uh, it's it's great. And then during the pandemic, there was a moment where so all movie theaters were closed, and there's a drive-in theater like maybe an hour away from my house, and me and a couple of friends, we were like, "Hey, they're doing a double feature. Let's go see Scream," because my friends had never seen it, and I was like, "I want you guys to see this movie." So we went there, we watched Scream, and the second movie in the double feature was Scary Movie.
Oh my
So we
God.
got to watch
Oh
Scream and Scary
wow.
Movie in the same night, which if you guys have
Wow.
never done, I highly recommend. It's perfect. Because we watched Scream and my friends were like they're like, "Yeah, that was good. Like it's all right." And then we watched Scary Movie, and it's so weird how complementary those movies are to each other. Which
Well,
also,
there's
funnily
so
enough,
many
Scary
people.
Movie was the original title for Scream too.
Right.
But it's
Right.
so good.
And the funny thing is, there are so many people, especially younger folks, that, they saw a Scary Movie before they ever saw a Scream. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's nuts. Oh,
Yeah,
what a
and so
fun
then
double feature.
when when Scream 5 was coming out, me and my friends decided. So two of my closest friends, Matt and Jordan, we once the pandemic started, we started watching movies over Discord with each other, and so we're like, let's watch the Scream series. Let's just go through all of them before Scream 5 comes out. We watched all of them. We had a great time. We went and saw Scream 5 in theaters. It was fantastic. And now we're here and we're obsessed. And back to what you were saying about seeing this movie when you were in high school. I was 4 years old when this movie came out, which we've talked about. But I think
Mhm.
it's so cool how, our age difference being different, like it's so cool how a movie like this can play so like equally depending like
Mhm.
even though our ages are different. Like, it's so cool how movies and even horror movies can do that.
That's a really interesting thing about the Scream series, because every film is this fun little microcosm of like the state of technology at the time the film's coming out.
Right.
And yet there's other stuff going on in the film, or films rather, that they're just like universal truths. You know, they're like basic, like standard axioms that just hold true, you know, for really everybody. You know, it's we all go through the same high school bullshit, the same college bullshit that you see in these films, and it's kind of perfect. It's God, it's fun. You know, as far as, you know, Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, you can't talk about this movie without bringing those two up and a couple of interesting points. I mean, this was out in 96, and about 2-3 years earlier, we got Wes Craven's New Nightmare, his return to the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and sort of the proto Scream, because if you've never seen it, that is an incredibly meta Nightmare on Elm Street about all the actors and creators from the series, and having, you know, in their, you know, day-to-day life, having Freddy basically break into the real world. And this was, you know, Craven's first stab at something like that. And he cranked that dial up to 11 with Scream. And then the writer, Kevin Williamson, of course, he would go on to do Dawson's Creek and a bunch of other cool stuff. But as far as like how these kids would speak to each other on Dawson's Creek, it was just like Scream. All these kids that sound so much older and so much smarter than they likely are. Just incredibly meta stuff at every turn too. Just so freaking fun. Oh,
yeah, God. Absolutely.
God.
And didn't Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Kevin Williamson go off to make or write I Know What You Did Last Summer also?
Yes.
Which is very akin to Scream as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it got at least one sequel. I don't know if there were any direct-to-video or anything after that.
I think there's 3. So there's the first one, and then there's I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and then I think there was a direct-to-video one that I think was I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer.
Boy, it sounds like right, but that could be some kind of Mandela effect thing. And
that's true.
But yeah, not quite as good as the Scream films, but still kind of fun, especially for the time period. But yeah, it just, God. And I love that, you know, Craven continued on with these films. And Scream 4 was even his final film before he passed away. But yeah. Oh, God.
And I love that in the movie, he has no problem with like either critiquing him, like his own work, and also like the line at the beginning where it's like it was like the Nightmare on Elm Street. The first one was good, but the rest sucked. Like, stuff like that.
Yeah, because his only involvement was as producer. Yeah, probably just executive producer, which also just means, you know, I'm making money off of this and I'm doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we should jump in here to the plot. We begin with an ultra 90s title card and one of the best fake out openings of the past 30 years.
So good.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an homage to Psycho in that the actress from the poster is not going to be in a lot of the film.
The one that's heavily in the advertising material and you think is going to be the star is just off right away.
Yep, a perfect red herring. We get Casey Becker. She's home alone, and she answers the phone to our first call from Ghostface, who's voiced by Roger Jackson throughout the series. Just this awesome, iconic voice. But
the voice of Mojo Jojo on Powerpuff Girls.
There you go. And what starts out as a call from a wrong number turns into playful banter as she makes some Jiffy Pop on the largest gas range ever. People in this town are fucking rich, is all I'm saying. All the houses are like super, super nice. Maybe not so much the Riley household, but for the most part, people, live in.
And they're on like tons of property. Like there's like direct neighbors.
Oh yeah.
Mile long driveway.
And then we finally get the iconic line of "What's your favorite scary movie?" It's one of the reasons why I had to, kind of change the direction of this podcast. So it was much more, what's one of your favorite scary movies? Because I'm sorry, if we just did your favorite, I'm never going to get people back on the show. No repeat guests. So yes. What's your favorite scary movie? Well, she answers with Halloween, after a little badgering by him. And they discuss Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street. And like you said, the fun commentary on the sequels kind of sucking because of Wes Craven's lack of involvement. And then all of a sudden the call takes a bit of a dark turn with, I want to know who I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Yeah.
It really sets the tone for what's going on. As if the title Scream didn't do enough.
Yeah, because it's fairly playful until this point and not really scary. It's just, okay, she's kind of flirting with this dude on the phone and her face just kind of freezes and falls a little bit. And she's like, "What'd you say?" And he's like, "I want to know who I'm speaking with." And she's like, "It's not what you said." She gets a little freaked out and she hangs up and she's starting to lock some of the doors and the phone rings again. And I think this is after he also says, "Don't you hang up on me." And he's like, when she answers the phone again, we immediately get, "I told you not to hang up on me." And Drew, the popcorn's smoking. It's okay. And then we get the comment about him wanting to gut her like a fish. And this is where she starts to freak a little bit. She starts racing around the house, locking doors. And, you got the voice taunting her and stuff. And we get a couple of quick flashes from the doorbell that freaks her out. And she screams out, "Who's there?" And this is where the voice really starts laying down the rules about, hey, you should never ask who's there. It's like a kiss of death, right? And Casey starts panicking a little bit here. And she starts threatening the voice with a beating from her boyfriend. And they go back and forth a little bit. And his name wouldn't be Steve, would it? Oh, once again, big old pause from Casey because, she thought she was gaining back control. No, she's got no control whatsoever. And then the voice asks her to turn on the patio light again. Because, he saw her do it the first time around when she was looking outside. He's been watching the whole time. And this time, here's Steve-O tied to a chair and clearly freaking out. Ooh, the voice wants to play a game. Movie trivia. This is fun because they go far deeper later in the movie as far as, horror movies, movie trivia, so on and so forth. But right here in the beginning, it's very like top level. If you've ever seen a horror movie, you generally know a lot of this stuff. I like how they keep it fairly light at this point. So yes, movie trivia. He asks her who the killer was in Halloween. She's able to answer with Michael Myers. But then round 2, name the killer from Friday the 13th. And she blurts out,
"Jason! It's Jason!"
Yes. And nope. Wrong answer. And she's so pissed because she thought she had him. And nope, you should know Jason only showed up in the sequels. It was Mrs. Voorhees in Friday the 13th. And, lucky for her, there's a bonus round, but not so lucky for Steve. And
Sorry, Steve.
Yep, this is where Steve's bowels are spilling out onto the patio.
Yeah.
And she's sobbing and freaking out, and the phone's kind of in her hand, but a little bit low, but you hear the voice a little bit distant. Hey, we're not finished yet. Oof.
So good.
Yeah, and you know what? For a film that's not as brutal as some of the more recent sequels, the way that the voice taunts with her is pretty damn brutal.
Yeah, it's crazy how something as simple as a phone call can like be so scary. Because at one point she's like running, and then the phone rings again, and she just like jumps and freaks out. But it's just the phone ringing because she knows who's on the other line of that phone.
Yeah. Oh God. And speaking of the phone, we'll get to that. Just how technology is used in this film, and how everything was, again, such a perfect use of technology for the specific time period. We're going to get to that with the landline. So yes, the next question is, what door am I at? And I'll tell you, Ghostface only says that there's, the front door and then a back door, but there are so many fucking doors in this house. She's walking by doors every time you turn around. It's Door City in here. Yeah, she doesn't exactly want to play ball. So Ghostface just throws a chair through the patio door.
Got to get her moving somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So she takes off running, and she's armed with a letter opener. And this is where we get the smoke just starting to billow from the burning popcorn. I love the use of the Jiffy Pop as just another device to build tension, because you're not necessarily thinking about it, but it's in the back of your mind that there's popcorn on an open flame and it's starting to burn, and you get the little hints of it getting worse and worse as everything else in the beginning of this film is getting worse and worse. It's a great little device. So Casey pauses in the kitchen. She grabs a knife out of the block, and she and the audience, we catch our first glimpse of Ghostface running past a hallway. And it's such a fast little flash here, and you barely see the costume. It's just like this black blur. It happens so fast. Yeah, it's spooky. She backs out of yet another door, and one that's clearly unlocked that she didn't get to. And she hides in the shadows outside, and, kind of question her intelligence in taking the phone with her, as it'd be a great way to give away her location. But again, that comes into play a little bit later. She kind of peers through a window. She sees Ghostface searching for her inside, and then she looks up, and in the distance, a car's approaching, down the longest road ever past all these cornfields. But hey, it's potential help, right? Yeah. She peeks in again. She sees Ghostface. He's in the kitchen, and she thinks about making a break for the car, but has to do one last little peek inside. And he's right there at the window. Smashes through the glass to grab the knife from her, and she smacks him in the face with the phone, getting away. Now, this is like the first instance that becomes a hallmark through most of these films of the perpetrator here being kind of a doofus and fairly vulnerable for such a, horrific killer. Ghostface tends to get the shit beat out of him.
Yeah, which is like perfect, because it's not a Jason Voorhees type, right? Like, they're not invincible, they're not undead, they're not supernatural.
It's not an unstoppable killing machine. Yeah. And very, very fallible. And also it lends itself quite well to the comedic tone that most of these films have. There's, for the most part, they are just straight up slasher films, but there is a healthy dose of comedy in a lot of these. So yeah, it works. So yeah, smacks him in the face. She gets away. And then as she's trying to get away, she pauses twice, once to look at her dead boyfriend, and then another point to watch her parents come up the driveway. And this is where Ghostface leaps through a window, tackling her at the second pause. She manages to slip away, running to her parents, but Ghostface is a little bit faster. And he muffles her screams and stabs her in the chest in slow motion. So Casey's on her back, and she ends up getting her voice box crushed, but she manages to kick Ghostface in the balls. Yep. And she kind of tries to crawl towards her parents, but she's unable to scream. How convenient. And then, they're going to enter the house, and she's right there at the edge of the front porch, but they just don't look to the left.
Look that way. Yeah.
Yep. And let's see here. They walk into the house and they survey the destruction, leaving their daughter to her doom. With her last bit of strength, she pulls the mask off of Ghostface, and there's a little bit of recognition there, but only she gets to see who it is. Not us. And then he, starts to take her out. So the parents are running around the house. There's smoke everywhere. They see all this damage, and they're freaking out for their daughter. They're screaming for her. And the dad tells the mom to call the police. She picks up the phone, but of course, because Casey still had the phone with her, still engaged on the call with Ghostface, they can't call out. And again, the perfect use of the landline, which very few people in this country have any longer.
Great use of the landline. Great use of the popcorn still, because the popcorn's burning. The parents immediately see something's wrong. Pick the phone up. They can hear Casey. It's perfect.
Yep. And that's, not just the fact that they can't get to the police because the phone's still engaged, but also they get to hear her dying as Ghostface is dragging her away. So dad tells mom to get in the car and drive to the neighbor's house to call the police. And I think this is a bit of a callback to some lines from the original Halloween at this point. But mom heads outside, and she just pauses, of course, because she finds her daughter gutted and hanging from a tree.
Sees the most horrible thing a parent could ever see.
The
dad's like, go to the neighbors, call the police, and she's so distraught. She's like, not my daughter, not my baby girl. Goes outside and sees this horrible sight. Oh man, it was so bad.
Yup. And we get this fun little almost Evil Dead cam style zoom in to mom screaming, and we cut to a crash of thunder, and we just cut to Sydney Prescott typing away in MS-DOS, not even Windows 95. It's old as shit. But she hears, the thunder crashing in the distance as well. There's a storm coming through town. Love sympathetic weather, always have. But she hears a little bit of a noise outside the house. Something that sounds like a flower pot breaking or something like that. I would say it's a roof tile, but no, they have regular shingles on this house. I noticed later. But she goes to check out the window, and she's startled by her boyfriend, Billy, who she lets in, telling him he needs to leave right away because of her father, whose room is right next door, and he likely heard her scream. And immediately dad knocks at the door. He knocks, but basically just bursts on in, wait for your kid to actually answer after you knock.
Yeah, Sid was lucky because she has the closet door right next to her bedroom door.
Perfect configuration, yes.
And I think her bedroom door was cracked, so the dad's like, what's going on in here? I heard screaming. Chill out, man.
Yeah. The closet door, when swung completely open, lines up perfectly just on the inside of the doorknob from the bedroom door. So when the bedroom door swings in, it just locks into the closet door. And of course, we'll get a call back to this later. So yes, Dad's coming to check on her because first of all, he thought he heard her scream, but also he's leaving on a business trip in the morning. He wanted to say goodnight / goodbye because he had to leave pretty early. He reminds her of where he's staying, and then he's leaving some money, downstairs for her so that, she can get by over the weekend on, pizza or hard drugs or whatever. And they say their goodbyes / goodnights, and he says, I could have sworn I heard screaming. And I love the look on his face here because otherwise he is the most like bland throwaway character ever in this film of the 2 scenes that he's in or whatever. But the little look on his face is great. But he leaves, she shuts the door, and Billy pops up with a stuffed animal from the other side of the bed. And he wants to talk about their lack of physical intimacy, but in terms of film. This is,
it's very on the nose, very meta, which is, the whole movie. But,
yep.
I thought it was so funny just him being like, yeah, we were hot and heavy. We were gearing towards an R rating, or we were at an R rating on our way to an NC-17, and lately we've been kind of edited for television, which it's totally cute in the world of the movie. But if I had a friend who talked to me like this all the time, I'd be like, you gotta calm down, man. You gotta chill with that. That's kind of exhausting. But
let alone
everybody kind of talks like that in this movie.
Oh yeah, it's very Kevin Williamson. And also just having a significant other talk about your relationship in these terms is so fucking condescending. But she's got the hot boyfriend.
Right
yeah, she is.
How about a PG-13 relationship?
Yeah. So he manages to convince her to do a little on top of the clothes stuff. Okay.
For like 10 seconds.
Yep. He gets a little bit too handsy. And, she decides to kick him out. But yes, she gives him the PG-13 relationship. And shout out to the cool little cover of Don't Fear the Reaper by this Gus Black that plays during this. I thought that was pretty dope. Yeah. I like the singer-songwriter shit, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, dude.
So we cut from here to the next morning with school being a 3-ring circus with a petting zoo as police and the news media have descended on campus investigating the previous evening's murders. We're introduced almost immediately to Gail Weathers, a reporter for Top Story, and Sid's friend Tatum. So Top Story is like this bullshit Inside Edition style, it's not a real news like national news type thing, but it's one of those more salacious ones from the 90s.
It's not like they want to be Dateline, but they're not. They're above they're below Dateline, but maybe just above TMZ.
Yeah.
They're kind of like ambulance chasing news people.
Oh yeah. That's a perfect way to describe it. And with little tact, Tatum spills the juicy gossip about Casey and Steve, pausing when she realizes she's about to bring up a sore subject for Sid. And then I also love that she mentions that they are questioning the janitors. Again, a nice little sly Nightmare on Elm Street reference. Yep. So fairly early on in the day, then Sid's called into the principal's office to be questioned, and we get introduced to a very young David Arquette as Deputy Dwight Dewey Riley, and the Wink as the principal. We got Henry Winkler as Principal Himbry. It's shocking how young he looks in this, but you got to figure this is a good 26, 27 years old at this point. Yeah, but Henry Winkler's fucking great in this movie.
Oh, he's the best. He's so good. Also, shout out to David Arquette and Dewey Riley. I love David Arquette. I mean, that's also my pro wrestling fan side because David Arquette is
Okay.
a wrestler as well, and it was obviously in the movie Ready to Rumble, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion also. But I love him; he's so great, and Dewey is such a
Yeah.
good character. The doting deputy, but so good.
And shout out to the sheriff who played one of the deputies in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So there you go. So yes, they kind of pussyfoot around the tragedy in Sid's past, and we get to asking questions. And Henry Winkler is like way too hands-on as a principal. He's like touching her chin and like rubbing up on her. It's like no, you don't get to do that as that kind of authority figure. Not even in the 90s did you get to do that.
And even when they're calling for the or maybe it was either when they call for the curfew or maybe it was before that, Principal Henry gets on the student intercom and he's like, I love you. Like,
remember, your principal loves you. Yeah, absolutely.
So like, his heart is totally in the right place. I get it, but it's just like, really? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's super creepy. But yeah, they just, question her a little bit. And then we cut to, that PA broadcast. And then we get the rest of our little friend group here with Stu and Randy in the fountain scene that includes one of the most Kevin Williamson conversations ever as they discuss being questioned and their theories about who did it and so on. And yeah, Stu and Randy, they're gross. And Sid bugs out to head home. Yeah. Fun little scene though. You absolutely understand who everybody is in this group, what their function is.
Stu is Billy's best friend. Randy's the super uber movie nerd.
Yep. He is absolutely the fifth wheel in the scenario all the time. And, they still love him, but also, he's just there. So Sid heads home and she hops off the bus and holy shit, what a nice house.
Yeah. No kidding. It was earlier, like all these houses on big flat parts of land. Just beautiful.
You got these rolling hills in the distance. We get some awesome shots of that later in the film. But yeah. So Sid makes plans to sleep over at Tatum's. For one thing, her dad's out of town, but also with everything that's going on, it just kind of makes sense to buddy up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's got a bit to wait before Tatum picks her up. So she pops on the TV and unfortunately every channel is the news talking about the murders. And then she lands on Gail Weathers, who goes one step further to discuss the rape and murder of Sid's mom nearly 1 year ago. Here's where we finally get why everybody is walking on eggshells around Sid. And it's, but also it's great that we got all of the, little clues leading up to this instead of just somebody spelling it out right away in the beginning. I think it's fun that it took this long to get to this point.
Yeah, it was a fun little mini mystery up until that point. It's like, wait, what happened here? Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
And I think it just makes you pay a little bit more attention to what's going on because they're always bringing up that there's something, but not just spelling it out. So that's cool. Let's see here. Sid's a little freaked out by what she's seen on TV. So she turns it off and she heads into another room and decides, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit of a snooze before, Tatum shows up. And she's kind of startled awake by the phone and it's Tatum. She's on her way. She's running late. This is probably like a regular dynamic in their friendship here, but she tells her to hurry up. She's clearly freaked out and doesn't want to be alone. And then the phone rings again. Not Tatum.
Yeah.
Nope.
It was so funny, right? But right when Sydney's like, Tatum, hurry up, just leave the house or whatever, and she's like, don't worry about it. Casey Becker didn't bite the dust until after 10. And then right after that, Ghostface calls. Right.
So she thinks that the voice is probably Randy. And we get another very Kevin Williamson line about her thoughts on horror films. What's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she'd be going out the front door. It's insulting.
It's insulting.
Yup. And, the killer claims he's calling from the front porch. And this is, after it's very clear, this is not a playful phone call now. And so Sid decides she's going to call his bluff. She's going to step outside. And, she walks to the edge of the porch, looks around, can you see me? And he's like, uh-huh. And she sticks her finger up her nose and is like, what am I doing? And he doesn't answer. And, she's like, again, calling his bluff. And she goes to hang up, and we get the, if you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother.
Such a good moment.
Yeah.
It's so great how, like, shout out to Roger L. Jackson, because like his voice can sound so like calming, and then even at the beginning with Casey Becker, so flirty and dare I say sexy, and then immediate like the most deadly thing you've ever heard in your life. He's so great.
Such a perfect voice for this role. And, thank God they kept him on for, the rest of the movies. Because I can't even imagine having somebody else just attempt. And we've all attempted. But, it's not the same. She's, musters some courage, yells out, fuck you, you cretin. She locks the door, slides the chain across, and this is where Ghostface pops out of the coat closet, and they tussle. And when he gets her on the ground, he smacks her head against the floor, which, God, you feel that. And he's either savoring the kill or not intending to kill her at all. But Sid takes advantage of his hesitation as she kicks him off. She struggles with the chain lock, of course, and ducks out of the way of a stabbing, and then runs up the stairs to her room, just like the people she's critiquing in the horror films that she doesn't like. And she locks her door, but immediately positions the closet door, like we talked about earlier. As wonderful callback, perfect architecture for this situation. And she tries to call the cops, but just like Casey's parents, the line's engaged because she never hung up the phone that she dropped downstairs. That's a problem. Absolutely. For some reason, though, she has a program on her computer for the deaf that connects to 911. I guess I never researched this ever to figure out what exactly this was or why she would necessarily have it. Maybe it's just a little, convenient. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with something that she was, studying for school.
It could have been installed potentially after the death of her mom. Like it could have been anything.
Yeah, that's true. She could have been going through a little bit of PTSD stuff where she wanted to have just about everything she possibly could to, as an extra layer of protection for herself.
It could have been a studying thing because kind of future spoilers here. In Scream 2, Sydney becomes a 911 operator. So it could potentially be something like that.
Oh, the third one.
Or yeah, right. That's Scream 3. Yes, correct. My mistake.
But yeah, she's like some kind of what do you call it? Like suicide hotline type thing.
Right. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it could have had something to do with that. That's an interesting point.
Also,
but yes.
Really, really quick, back to when Ghostface busts out of the closet. Earlier, when Sydney's walking through the house, she opens that closet door and there's nothing in it, and she like puts something in there.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's true. That was one of those great little
in the house.
Yeah, there was one of those great fake out moments with her looking in that closet because the music hits as if something's about to happen, and you often get those moments where the closet door opens, blocking the shot, and then when it closes, that's where the killer is standing or whatever.
Which the franchise has done a few times since then.
Oh, yes.
It's always nice to see every time. It's like, okay, good. Subvert the expectations.
They know what they're doing. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, just as this 911 program is starting to connect, she realizes that Ghostface isn't there anymore. And this is where Billy pops into her windows, startling her. And, she kind of melts into him and, she's having her freak out moment. She kind of lets him know what's going on. And this, of course, is where he comforts her, but a cell phone drops out of his pocket. And when she sees this thing, this is where she suspects the worst. And she backs away from him and runs down the stairs as, he puts two and two together. And he's like, no, it wasn't me. It's blah, blah, blah. And, she runs down the stairs, gets to the front door. And when she swings it open, there's Dewey with, for whatever reason, the Ghostface mask mashed up against the front door and a gun in his hand. And they scare the shit out of each other. They both scream. And it's chaos outside her house from that moment on. Billy's getting cuffed and led away. Tatum shows up and embarrasses the shit out of Dewey. This is where it's revealed that they're siblings. And Jesus, the camera, hurry. My name isn't Jesus.
I love Kenny so much.
Kenny's great.
So great.
Shout out to Kenny.
Shout out.
Oh God. Dewey's having basically after everybody drives away, Dewey's at the station there talking to Sid. They're having trouble locating her dad. They double check where he could have been if it wasn't the place that, he was talking about. But Dewey gets called away from his desk, and we get some extra tense looks across the police bullpen between her and Billy. And then cut to the sheriff's office where Billy and his dad are sitting there because the sheriff is questioning, a kid.
His son for murder.
Yeah, and Billy's dad is absolutely that parent that goes in and demands the teacher offer a makeup exam or a reevaluation of a grade or something like that.
Yep.
He's that parent.
And male Karen.
Oh, you know it. Yep. And then the sheriff decides to hold Billy until his cell phone records clear him, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. It makes sense given everything that's going on. And Tatum shows up at the station. She wants to take Sid home because she's clearly having a hard time of it. Then we cut over to where Dewey was going, and it turns out the Ghostface costume is widely available with no real way to track it. The sheriff's convinced that it's possible a kid could be the killer. He wouldn't have believed it before, but and once again, Tatum has to embarrass the shit out of her brother Dewey, and the sheriff suggests that they just head out the back door and head home. Where
avoid the circus out front.
Yes, but of course, Gail is conniving little thing. She and Kenny sneak around the corner
already.
Yep. They know there's a back door, and they run into Gail. Gail tries to get a word from her, and Sid decks her.
Yeah, and she deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because she's been a little bit of a bitch to Sid.
And she's
Tatum,
been
of
talking
course,
about her mom so much on the news, and not always been so nice.
Is writing a book about the whole death of her mother, and
it's so crazy because Sydney punches Gail, and Gail is saying all of these things because she thinks Cotton Weary is innocent, which in her defense, she's right. But Sydney doesn't know that. So in Sydney's mind, she's talking smack about my mom. So I want to punch her. Face.
And it's revealed later that Sydney was like the key witness that put Cotton away. So, she probably is fairly convinced he was the killer. So somebody trying to exonerate her mother's killer. Yeah, she's probably not too cool on this. That's that makes sense.
She offers her a free copy of the book.
Oh yeah, that's what makes her break. Yep. So Tatum is super impressed and can't stop gushing as they get ready for bed. Bam, pow, bitch went down. Sid, super bitch.
Super bitch.
Yeah.
So good.
I don't know that this could get any more 90s. But Dewey offers some ice for Sid's hand. It's very kind of him, as well as protection from his room next door.
Absolutely.
Tatum, not so impressed. She's so over her older brother. This is where Mrs. Riley pops in to let them know that Sid has a phone call. She wonders if it's her dad. She doesn't think so. She picks up the phone, and of course, it's Ghostface. And this is, of course, after Dewey has gone to bed. So he's behind a closed door while all of this is going down. Ghostface taunts Sid about accusing the wrong guy, implying that she accused the wrong man in her mother's murder. And where I was going with this with Dewey not being in the scene, I love how they have characters enter and leave scenes. So you'd be excused if you expected Dewey, and they use him and other characters as red herrings throughout this film in this way. It's fucking perfect, and I love it.
In this scene in particular, it has my favorite Dewey moment in the whole movie, because Sydney's talking to Ghostface and she's like, leave me alone. Just leave my family alone or whatever. And Tatum and Dewey's mom leaves the room. And then later she comes back with Dewey, and Dewey's just got a gun just walking around the house with it. He takes the phone when everyone's left the room and he just goes, hello? And then it just cuts to the next scene.
Yeah, and it's perfect because he doesn't pop out of his room until they've already hung up the phone.
Yeah.
The call has ended. So again, you would be excused if you expected that he could be the killer. And then we cut next to Red Right Hand. It's first used in this film by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. That's a pretty dope album that comes from, too. There's nothing like driving to work on a super gray, slightly rainy fall day listening to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Oh, yeah.
That sets a tone.
One of my favorite uses of that song is in Hellboy, the Del Toro Hellboy.
Yep.
Great use of that song.
Yep.
And this song is in every Scream movie, I think, except for one, right? I think it's not in number 4. I could be wrong.
I can't recall.
Well, later in the series, we'll find out.
We will find out, yes. Because this is happening, yes. But yeah, love that song, always have. Love Nick Cave, love the side project, Grinder Man, all that stuff's fun. But yes, we get our first glimpse of Liev Schreiber as they show some archived news footage of him being led away. And this is during breakfast time at the Riley house here, where Dewey, who has clearly already been on the phone with the station, lets the girls know that Billy's been cleared and they're still looking for Sid's dad. Yeah. Not great news. Not
ideal.
No, the deputy drops the girls off at school, and Sid is immediately accosted by this nasty ass reporter who, wants to be another Gale Weathers, I guess.
Which that reporter, I believe, is the same woman who played the little girl in The Exorcist. I believe.
That is Linda Blair. Yep.
Yeah, Linda Blair.
That's true. Yep. Fun little cameo there. Sid spots Gale a little ways down the sidewalk, and she heads over to talk. Gale's not having it. She's not ready for another, she's not ready for round 2. But she relents when Sid tells her that, she owes her mother. And, here we get the full story of their shared animosity. Sidney's testimony put Cotton away, but Gale made a living off stories vouching for his innocence and calling Sid an unreliable witness. Now, Gale thinks that Sid isn't all that sure and that the killings could be related. Yeah.
a lot to unpack,
It
especially
is.
as a teenager in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that you've got somebody on death row who you put away that could be innocent after all. Yeah. Interesting. Now, things are absolutely nuts at school still. Stu says that it's like Christmas. And, when Sid asks about Billy, he makes this crack about Sid branding him the Candy Man. And we get somebody running down the hall in a Ghostface costume, freaking everybody out, just kind of having fun with it. And Sid kind of storms off, but of course she immediately runs into Billy, and they have a pretty tense conversation. Cut to the Wink with a couple of these kids with their costumes, and wow, he is being extra aggressive with them, brandishing a very large pair of scissors, and he's like slicing up one of the masks in front of them and just like dragging the scissors across one of the guy's chests. And just
like we were saying earlier how he's so like hands-on and so kind. And then the complete other side of this, he's like, you guys are expelled. Like you're completely expelled. They're like, what? No, that's not fair. And he's like, you know what? That's not fair. What would be fair is to gut the both of you or something like that. And he's dragging the scissors across this poor kid's chest, which is like, yeah, he did something very insensitive while running through the hallways during a series of murders. But like the principal technically threatened this kid's life.
Yep. And this is another great red herring moment because could be the principal. Who knows? Right? Because, he's extra gross with people. So then we cut back to Sid finally getting to the head to freshen up. And, she overhears some mean girls talking about her in the stalls. And that just sends her, spiraling even more. So she hops into a stall herself before they come out because she doesn't want to have that confrontation. They're just extra gross about it all, and then they leave, and she steps out only to hear somebody whispering her name. And she gets down on the ground, looks under the stalls, doesn't see anybody. She hears it again. She looks again, backs up a little bit. And this is where we get that awesome, awesome shot of the boots stepping down from on top of the toilet and then the robe falling down around them.
So cool. Like as if she wasn't already in danger enough with the feet. Just the robe like coming down like a garage door, ironically, seals the fate. It's so great.
Yep. And then, basically, Ghostface comes bursting out of one of the stalls and she, kind of slides under him and manages to get out of the restroom and, runs down the hall. There's like a teacher, like just standing there staring, doesn't even say a thing, doesn't even tell her, hey, stop running. Nothing like that. It's, Yeah, that's interesting. But so let's see here. I kind of lost my place a tiny bit. Don't mind me. Yes. Okay. So she escapes. And then my big question here, sorry to kill the momentum, but how did Ghostface get in there? So I don't think he could have gotten into the stall before Sid entered the restroom, just based on everything that was happening. But was there just enough time between the mean girls leaving and Sid walking out of the stall that could have happened?
Maybe. And I think it ultimately depends on who it was in the bathroom, too, if it was Stu or Billy. Because didn't she go into the bathroom after she just talked to Billy? So it must have been Stu.
So spoilers for the end of the movie, but Stu and Billy are the killers. Sorry. No. But you're right. She had just talked to Billy before she walked off to the restroom. She just ran into Billy after Stu was with Tatum, like 10 to 15 feet back down the hallway. I don't know that Stu could have run around and he would have been in her line of sight as she's talking to Billy, entering that restroom if he had run around. So it had to be between the mean girls leaving and her walking out of the stall. But man, with those, big ass Doc Martens, boy, stepped very quietly getting into that, stall and everything.
Yeah. Also would have had to have gone into the bathroom with probably a backpack or something, because you're not just going to walk into the bathroom in a Ghostface costume. So,
well, I mean, there were other kids running around the school in the
true.
costume, so it's like the perfect excuse to be doing it as well.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you got that slight little gap in logic, and you just have to say, okay, it's movie logic. We're okay. But yeah, I assume that's the time that he gets in there. Well, after she runs out of there, we cut to, Gail running into Dewey outside the school, and she flirts with him and questions him. And is this where we get the Dewey theme in the score for the first time?
I think so, yeah. Which is just lifted from another movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Although that's film scores in general, because they all use those temp tracks to work with scoring from other movies, and that's why everything sounds like James Horner's score from Aliens.
Right.
But yeah, they have their little back and forth, which is super fun. And right after that, we get the principal suspending classes and sending everyone home. Tatum and Sid, they leave with everyone, and they run into Stu, who tells them he's hosting a party at his house that night. Back to the office with the Wink as he's trying on a Ghostface mask. And, he's a little startled by a knock at the door, and then his own reflection in a mirror. That he's such a fucking doofus. The knock comes again. And this time he, pops open the door and walks out into the administration office there, and there's nobody there. And then he looks out into the main hallway, and he looks around. He's like, little shits. And this is where we get an awesome cameo from Wes Craven, the director, wearing a pretty traditional Freddy Krueger getup. And playing a janitor named Fred, who also calls the principal a prick under his breath as Henry Winkler goes back into the office.
Watching this movie with headphones, for me, I picked up on so many little things I had never heard before. Because, like you said, the Wink is like, oh, little shits. And then freaking Fred just goes, what'd you call me? And he's like, oh, not you, Fred, prick. They just close the door.
So, the Wink heads back into his office, and, we get this nice little fake out with the closet, and then another startled reaction in the mirror. And he looks in his closet, pushing aside his jackets and everything, nothing there, looks back out the door, and swings the door closed with his back to it. And of course, Ghostface is right behind the door. Gets knifed in the gut, and we get the super cool shot as his life slips away of Ghostface reflection in his eye.
So cool.
And I can't remember what movie that's a callback to.
I don't remember.
You know what? It might be Psycho, actually.
Okay.
Isn't there?
That would track.
I feel like when Janet Leigh dies early in that film, there's like a reflection in her eye as the life goes out of her, or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but God, love all the fun little shit that they do in this movie. And immediately, because of the death of the principal, we cut to Alice Cooper and School's Out. It's fun. Sid's back at the Riley house, and she and Tatum are on the porch, and they've got speakers in the window, and they're just having a nice casual conversation about Sid's mom's past indiscretions. We get a fun little throwaway line about the Richard Gere gerbil story, which was a thing that people talked about in the 90s.
Yep.
Sydney starts to come around just a little bit to the idea that Cotton Weary may be innocent and that the killer could be out there. And while they're having this conversation, It feels like somebody's watching them. At least that's how the camera plays. And of course, it's very true because Ghostface is off in the trees watching them. And we get all these fun little shots over the next like 15 minutes of this movie of Ghostface basically stalking them everywhere. It's cool. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I love the scene where and I guess even the scenes before that, but Stu so just not empathetic about what is going on in their town at all. Like he's just like, oh hey, we don't have class anymore. Thank you, Sydney. Like he just does not care that people are being killed. He has no remorse at all for anything. He's just like, hey, cool. We don't have to go to school. That's awesome. Let's party.
Yep. He is your typical 17, 18-year-old. Absolutely. Yeah. So we cut from here to the video store where Stu's a giant jerk to Randy, but still makes sure to invite him to his party. And they spy Billy talking to a couple of girls over in the horror section, which Randy finds in poor taste. But, Stu defends him that, hey, he was cleared. We're good. But Stu wants to blame Sid's father, who they can't find. Yeah. And this is where Randy has a massive freak out in front of God and everybody about the whole situation. And this is where Billy sneaks up behind him in the meantime. And we get the, how do we know you're not the killer? And, Randy, capitulates a little bit there. But then when they ask about what his motive is, because, of course, Randy was talking to Stu about whether or not he would have a shot with Sydney because Billy's on the outs. What would be your motive, Randy? And he says, it's the millennium. Motives are incidental. And then we get Billy being absolutely fucking creepy as all get out, and tapping him on the face, telling him he's a good kid. It's like, okay, yeah, he's got killer written all over him.
Been hanging out with Principal Hembry too much.
Yeah, a little bit. We get the return of Red Right Hand as the town closes down for curfew. I don't know why this mother and her child are having a picnic at 6 o'clock at night, but whatever. But yeah, the town is clearly shutting down here. And we get Dewey stopping by the station while the girls head to the store to grab snacks. And we get Ghostface stalking them throughout the convenience store. I don't know who's not seeing this person in this Halloween costume, but it's cool. It's cool. He's stealthy. Dewey runs into the sheriff after clearly stopping somewhere to grab a little kitty cone. He's such a child.
This scene is so great. Just the cops, the cops smoking to relieve stress, and Dewey's just eating ice cream.
Yeah. I think of just a little bit to reveal stress because he's treating the ice cream like the cigarette. Yeah,
they're going at the same time. It's so good.
That's perfect. So it turns out the calls have been coming from Sid's dad's phone. Now, Dewey wonders if the phone could have been cloned, and I don't know that was necessarily a thing that people were aware of in 96. I really don't remember because I didn't even have my own cell phone until probably like 99 or 2000. But it also turns out that the next day is the anniversary of Sydney's mother's death. So they plan to, try to find Neil Prescott and bring him in before they reveal anything to Sydney, because they understand things are pretty hard on her. And the sheriff throws down his cigarette and stomps it out, and Dewey considers throwing his ice cream on the ground, I guess. I don't know if he actually does. That would be really weird if he did, but
I can see him doing it though. Just doing it and be like, man.
Now he's got to go get something to clean it up, and it could be a whole extended thing. Yeah. So we go from there to party time at Stu Macher's house. Dewey drops the girls off. I love how there's a killer on the loose. There's a fucking curfew, and yet the cops are still taking the girls to a party where there's going to be tons of underage drinking.
And Dewey is there and stops a kid at one point. I'm getting a little ahead, but stops the kid at one point and is like, "Hey man, how old are you?" No, I'm just kidding. Have fun.
Yeah. Not
like,
too
Dewey,
much fun.
on.
Not too much fun. Yeah. And they are being followed by Gail and Kenny, and Kenny's a fucking litter bug.
Love him.
Yeah.
Love Kenny.
And we get, beer bongs and loud music and everything else. It's a party. Probably the first time I ever saw a beer bong was watching this movie. I'm like, what the? Okay.
What is that for?
I know. And then, just a few years later in undergrad, it's like, oh yeah, this is clearly what this is for. But yeah, people are having a good time. And we get the fun little jump scare for Gail with Dewey where, he stops at the news van, scares the shit out of them. Once more with the Dewey red herring here because he's, a little creepy here and there. And he stupidly allows her to come with him to check out the party. And Gail takes the moment to grab this small little wireless camera to plant in the house. This is where Randy's pulling the party guests on which horror film they're going to pop on. Shout out to Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Because as a 17-year-old in 96, it was certainly not on my radar yet. Real shame too, because I grew up in, still am here in Michigan. So, real shame there.
And that movie must have affected Wes Craven in some way because that's his second Evil Dead reference. There's one in Nightmare because Johnny Depp's watching it on his TV right before he gets got.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Love the Evil Dead movies.
So cool.
And can't wait for Rise. We'll
see how that one goes.
Yeah.
I'm a little on the fence, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, you know it. So yes, Randy's pulling everybody and Stu leaves to go get the door and asks Tatum to go get him a beer. That feels like a fun little nod to Halloween there. But, most of the kids are thrilled that it's Gail Weathers because, she's such a celebrity for her tiny little pissant news show. Tatum's just pissed and Sydney's, I don't know, she's just kind of freaked out that she's there, probably because Gail has stirred something up in her that she's not ready to deal with. Right. But Tatum just, she's like, fuck it. She heads off to the garage to get some beers. And she opens and closes the garage door to turn on the light overhead because it is an old school garage door that just has the single button and doesn't actually have the light switch. So while she's grabbing beers, the door to the house swings shut and the Mocker family cat scares the shit out of Tatum, knocking over some shovels and shit and running out the pet door that's mounted in the garage door. I've never seen a pet door built into a garage door before seeing this film, and I've never seen one after. And
it just seems like it's something that they just added. They're like, well, we need a scare here. What if it's the cat? Well, yeah, just install a cat door.
We need to get a way to death by garage door. And in order to do so, how do we make that happen? Okay, pet door in the garage door. Got it. So the door to the house is locked when she tries to go in. And, she's like, fuck it. I'll just go around. She opens up the garage door, but before she's able to get through, it comes back down again. Ghostface is there. It's nice and effective. Again, with Ghostface being super stealthy because he's got to be, because he's the killer in a slasher movie, right? You can't have him being super loud. No. She immediately thinks it's Randy. Is that you, Randy? Audio listeners, I'm shaking my head, and so is Aaron. And then she asks, you want to play Psycho Killer? Audio listeners, we are nodding our heads. Can I play the helpless victim? Nods head again. It becomes clear that this is serious when Ghostface brings out a knife and starts slashing at her. Major party foul with the beers there because she drops them all. And then, he takes off after her. We get the awesome freezer door of the fridge clotheslining. Again, so hallmark of the films, just how clumsy and inept the killers seem to be for people that always seem to have the upper hand. But again, they're just fucking kids. At the end of the day, this is just another high school kid. So Tatum actually holds her own pretty well against Ghostface. She's pelting him with beer bottles. It's a good thing he doesn't have to wear the costume for much longer in this film because it's just going to get gross. But, she tries to make her escape through the cat door in the garage. Ghostface gets a little bit of an idea. So she is, of course, stuck halfway in and halfway out in a super tight sweater and short skirt because, of course, she is.
Right.
And Ghostface fires up the garage door. And, a lot of people are like, well, how is this garage door opener strong enough to lift this body up with everything else? But you have to understand, it's the springs of a garage door that do all the heavy lifting. The opener basically just gives it the tug to get started. This thing is on its way up. You see plenty of videos of little kids holding onto a garage door and, being able to be taken up. It's not all that. So of course, snap, the garage door snaps Tatum's neck and she dead. And just cut to some of the guests, taking off.
Leaving like nothing happened.
This happens several times throughout the rest of this movie. People just leaving at different intervals. But this is where Sid's looking around for Tatum. She's thinking of taking off as well. She's kind of over this. But this is where Billy shows up. And he just kind of pops out of the woodwork and gives everybody a little bit of a jump scare. And he's just, he wants to talk to Sid. And Stu offers his parents' bedroom for some privacy with very little tact, and Billy calls him on it, gives him a little punch to the balls as well. And Randy pops up and he's like pissed that Leatherface is here, and he and Stu have a little Clueless exchange because I guess Clueless was actually out before this film. I don't remember that timing at all. It just makes a person feel old. Ugh, sorry, but
no worries.
But Kenny and Gail realize that their camera that they planted has a little bit of a delay, but they love the shots they're getting. It's about 30 seconds, they figure, however long it took Gail to get from the house to the van. And then we cut to the Mocker parents' bedroom where Billy tries apologizing to Sid, but she stops him and tries to apologize to him. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching this for the umpteenth time, God, how gaslit is Sid by Billy? It's
unfortunate. But who knows? Maybe after the whole thing with Gail, that's got her thinking differently. Maybe that's one way you could kind of forgive it. But Billy is just kind of jerking around everywhere. It's really unfortunate, but we find out that Billy's not all there. Also, fast, you talked about how Kenny and Gail are in the van watching the cameras. So I watched Scream for this morning. I got done probably 2 hours before we started recording. And I'm eating snacks, watching the movie, got this backwards hat on. At one point, Kenny is eating a Cheeto while wearing a backwards hat. I was eating Cheetos, and I saw myself on the screen. I was like, whoa, all I was missing was a goatee.
There you go.
So funny.
There you go. That's funny. I'll tell you, it took me a long time to get through the notes this week just because of how much it seemed to flow out of me. Again, clearly I love this film, and the ones I really love, it becomes a bit of a process getting through. So I'm glad I was able to get done in time, but I was under the wire for sure. Yeah. So yeah, they're working on apologizing with each other. And let's see here. Yes, she says that she realizes that she can't wallow in grief forever and thinks she needs to admit who her mom really was, because there's all this talk of her mother being, this village bicycle, so to speak. Everyone gets a ride. And she's worried that she's going to end up just like her. But Billy comforts her, essentially telling her that she gets to choose what direction her life will take, with this ham-fisted movie analogy about genres. And, they make out a little bit, and Sid decides that she may be ready for sex after all. Meanwhile, the remaining kids are watching John Carpenter's Halloween, and Randy goes over the rules. This
one
is,
of, if not the most iconic scene from this
movie. This had to be in the trailer. I can't remember it, but it had to be.
100% it was. And it obviously wasn't the whole thing, but it was definitely there are rules that one must abide by in order to survive a horror movie.
Right. And rule 1 is no sex. Okay.
No.
The kids are not having that. They're throwing all sorts of stuff at them. Yep. Only virgins can survive the climactic chase scene, blah, blah, blah. Rule 2, no drinking or drugs. Yeah, big no. This is an extension of rule 1. It's the sin factor. And then 3, never ever say, I'll be right back, because you won't be. And this is where Stu does his, doofy, anybody want a beer? I'm going to get one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll be right back. And everybody has fun with that one. Sure. We cut from here to Gail.
Another shout out to Randy. I love that during all of this that's happening in this small town, all these poor kids being killed and their principal and all this stuff, Randy is educating everyone just in the middle of a party with horror movies that he probably got from his job. Because he's just like, hey, I brought all these tapes. We might as well study. Because earlier in the video store, he's like, no, the police are way too behind on this. If they watch Prom Night, they'd save time. And he has all of these ideas in his head of how this is supposed to go. And he ends up being like pretty on the nose about it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, you guys gotta know. I'm trying to keep you safe while also watch some dope movies at the same time.
Yup. And we cut from the house then to Gail and Kenny watching the rules speech from the van. And Dewey knocks on the door, and they quickly turn it off because they don't want to get caught.
Right.
And he lets them know that somebody reported a car in the bushes down the road, and he would like to invite Gail to come with him. Okay.
And to walk, not drive.
Right, because it's such a nice night. And of course, Gail says to Kenny, Dewey, be right back. And he does the awesome flashlight under the face thing with, you're not scared, are you? Yeah. Once again with the red herring with Dewey, and it's super effective for sure. Yeah. And of course, more kids are leaving while Sid and Billy get it on upstairs. And this is the first of the scenes cutting back and forth with Halloween. We get the dual planes of action of the kids watching the movie, mostly Randy watching the movie. And the stuff kind of, they're mirroring each other quite a bit. And this kind of continues throughout the rest of the film, actually. This is where the phone rings, where Randy picks it up. And this is probably Stu calling at this point. Mm-hmm. But this caller is letting them know that the principal Himbury's body has been found gutted and hanging from a goalpost at the football field. And everybody bugs out, leaving Sid, Billy, Stu, Randy, Kenny, Gail, and Dewey. Yeah. They want to go check him out before they take him down.
That's messed up.
Horrible.
Awful
horrible
people.
Yes, horrible drunk teenagers. Yes. So that leaves Sid, Billy, Stu, Randy, Kenny, Gail, and Dewey at the house. That is our final cast here. Gail and Dewey flirt as they head down the road. And they nearly get run down by the kids that just left the party, and they fall down.
the kids are just like speeding to it, like stop, stop, stop. They just like, nope, we're gonna kill this cop if he doesn't move.
Oh, they're drunk
like,
as
what
fuck.
are you guys doing? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so they've Dewey and Gale, they fall down into the ditch. He lands on top of her. They kiss. She turns to the side and notices something off screen, and she's like, is that what you're looking for? And he's like, all my life. He's such a fucking dope. I love him. He's so fucking lovable. Yeah, he's so sincere. That's the thing. It's, kind of to a fault, but he's very sincere. And they see it's Neil Prescott's car. Like, holy shit. Okay. So Sid and Billy, back to them, they're getting dressed. That didn't take very long. And she picks kind of a strange time to ask Billy who he called when he was arrested. Because clearly she's been thinking about all this stuff for the past, 5 minutes, 45 seconds that, it took for the, previous scene to happen. Right. As I'm sure it did. And yeah, he gets a little angry, asking her what he needs to do to prove he isn't a killer. And, she's like, oh my God. And then looks up and sees that Ghostface is behind him. And oh my God, he turns around and gets stabbed in the gut. Yeah. And we get one of those iconic shots of Ghostface using his glove to clean the blade.
Oh, it's so cool. He's so considerate every time to clean it so he doesn't cross-contaminate anybody.
Right. That or leave much of a blood trail, I guess, from a dripping blade. Maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. But yeah, Ghostface knifes Billy to death. Sid flees only to be cornered by him on the stairs. She manages to knock him down with the door to the attic, and she barricades herself in with a surfboard. She's kind of pounding at the window for help because she sees the news van in the distance still there. She finds another window as Ghostface is starting to breach the door. She kind of climbs half out onto the roof. And then when she looks back, he's reaching out the window and they tussle a little bit and she falls off onto a boat that's parked into the driveway. And that has to hurt like a motherfucker.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just this tarp that's stretched to catch her fall. It's like draped over seats and stuff. Your body's gonna feel that.
It's gonna be a visit to the chiropractor at the very least.
Oh, hell yeah.
If not like some permanent damage.
Yep. She's absolutely slipped a disc or something with this.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see here. She falls out on the boat, and when she gets up after she rolls off, she finds Tatum's body stuck in the garage door. And freaks out and runs away. And this is where we get back to Jamie Kennedy as Randy yelling at Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween on the TV to be careful because she's being stalked as he's being stalked by Ghostface. This is the height of 96 meta.
Absolutely. He's basically talking to himself. Jamie, turn around. Turn around, Jamie.
It's perfect. I love the callback to this in Scream 5. It's so good. But Ghostface almost strikes, but pauses when he hears Sid screaming outside, and drunk Randy, obsessed with the movie, can't hear a thing. I suppose convenient for the plot. But she runs into Kenny in the news van. She begging him for help, and he shows her that they've got a camera feed inside the house. And they see Randy about to get knifed, but Kenny knows that the camera's got about a 30-second delay, so he's going to go save him, and instead he gets his throat slit by Ghostface. Yeah.
But not Kenny. Before kind of like alluding to the fact that there's like a back door in the van that Sidney can escape through.
Thank God for that, because Ghostface stabs Sid in the shoulder and they tussle a little bit more, but she manages to get away through that back door. And this is where Dewey and Gale get back to the house, and he tells her to call the sheriff for backup from the van as he goes to investigate inside. That news van must have been a decent ways away from everything, because I don't know how the three of them didn't run into each other. But, well, I guess Sid was like busting up that fence or something to get across the field or something like that. I don't know.
Something
Maybe
like
she was
that,
taking,
yeah.
taking a roundabout way. Who knows? But, he runs inside, and Jamie Lee's screams fill the house, and you get the, you know, the diegetic music from Halloween scoring this scene as
Yeah,
well.
it's used so well. I love that.
It's and it happens multiple times throughout the rest of this film. It's great because the John Carpenter score is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Again, not to, you know, poo-poo Marco Beltrami's score in this film, which is a really good horror score
Very
too.
good.
Oh, it's awesome. But I mean, Carpenter's just the GOAT. So at this point we cut back to Gail getting to the van, and she finds blood everywhere. So she gets a little freaked out. She hops into the driver's seat and grabs a Zach Morris phone to call 911, because it is a big honking cell phone, right? And this is where Randy pops up outside the driver's side window to ask her what's going on. She smashes his face with this big ass cell phone, and she fires up the van to get away, and finds the windshield covered in blood. That's always fun. And then she backs up and slams on the brakes, and defying physics, this causes Kenny's body to slide down onto the windshield. I had to think about this as I was watching. Like, that wouldn't work that way.
That would make him go backwards.
Yes, he would have flown off the back of the van, but movie logic, whatever.
Yeah.
Anti-grav Kenny, I don't know. But this happens, and she's like, "Get off my fucking windshield."
Kenny, I'm sorry, but get off my fucking windshield. And just whips the poor guy off. Oh, man. Poor Kenny.
Yeah. So she fires off down the driveway here, and this is where Sydney pops up in the headlights screaming for help, and Gail swerves to avoid her and ends up crashing the van. All right, so Sid runs to the house calling out for Dewey. He opens up the front door and collapses from a knife wound in his back. This is where Ghostface steps into frame and retrieves his knife, chasing Sid down the sidewalk to Dewey's truck. She hops inside, locks the doors, and she's looking around for the keys, and we get the little tap, tap, tap of the knife on her window. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Yeah, it's perfect. Just
so good.
The physicality to Ghostface, and just the little touches in his movements are just so much fun.
Yeah, and the fact that he showed her that he had the keys, played all of his cards, and then immediately, instead of walking around the car, goes underneath, and you don't know where he's going to be. Then doors start unlocking. She's like, oh, like frantically trying to undo everything. So well done.
Yep. So yeah, she's freaking out, trying to keep the doors locked, and then she notices, oh yeah, radio. So, you know, she's trying to make a call on the radio, and meanwhile, very silently, the back hatch of the truck is opening up, and he's crawling in. They fight, but Sid slips away, falling out of the passenger door. She gets about halfway to the front door of the house, up the sidewalk there, looks behind, and Ghostface is gone.
Completely gone.
And then she starts going for the door again, and this is where Randy's, popping into frame and, limping a little bit, because I don't know exactly how that happened, because I thought it was his face that got smashed. But he comes limping into frame saying that they got to get the fuck out of there, and Sid grabs Dewey's pistol, and she clearly doesn't trust anybody at this point. So Randy's screaming about finding Tatum and how he thinks Stu did it. Immediately, Stu comes flying out of nowhere and, asking Sid not to listen to Randy, and he thinks that he probably did it. Sid's like, fuck you both. And she slams the front door in their faces. And you hear them arguing with each other outside and calling for her and accusing each other and shit. And, I'm not so sure about the sudden hostility toward Randy, but I get it. She's been attacked. Her best friend is dead. Her boyfriend was just killed, knifed in front of her.
Yeah, it could have also just been the fact that she was just fighting Ghostface and he's gone. And the first person who immediately shows up is Randy. So it could just be like, I don't trust you. Get away from me.
Yep. She is out for number one at this point, and I don't blame her.
Absolutely.
So she's kind of leaning against the front door as she's listening to them. And this is where Billy comes falling down the stairs. And then, she goes to check on him and she can't believe that he's still alive. And he's like, no, I'm okay. And he gets up and he kind of, limps a little bit to the front door, ends up taking the gun from her. And she's like immediately in girlfriend mode, letting him take control. Nope. And he opens up the door and lets Randy in. Stu's nowhere to be found. And Randy's like, Stu's flipped out. He's gone mad. We all get a little mad sometimes. And fuck, bam.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Goes flying through that hall table. This is where Billy mentions that was a reference to Psycho and that the blood on his shirt is corn syrup, the same as they used for the pig's blood in Carrie. And Sid's like, what the fuck is going on? She tries to run and Stu's there in the doorway to the kitchen and he's got the voice changer. Surprise, Sydney. And yes, there are two killers and they reveal that yes, they're gonna kill her too. I can't remember how much of a surprise this was in my first viewing of this way back when, but it's a fun reveal.
Absolutely. Because at first you're like, oh shit, Billy's the killer. And then Stu's there and it's like, there's two of them?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's something that they continue in all but one film too. Mm-hmm. Future spoilers, but there's typically two killers. So, when she tells him that they're never going to get away with it, Billy reveals that they were the ones that killed her mother and framed Cotton. They're pretty confident in their abilities. And this is Stu's line of watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun.
It was fun.
Mm-hmm. He's such a cornball.
God bless Matthew Lillard. I love this whole performance from now until the end of the movie. It's so
he's
great.
Absolutely deranged.
Completely coated with cheese, but I like my meals cheesy.
Oh, yeah, you know it. So Sid asks why, and, Billy's like, why? Why? You hear that, Stu? She wants to know why. Scarier when there is no motive, isn't it? They bring up Hannibal Lecter and a few other characters and how, it's more terrifying because you don't know what their actual motives are. Mm-hmm. And then Billy offers his own motives. Sid's mom was sleeping with his dad, and that's the reason that his mother skipped out on him. Talks about how that messed him up and how losing a parent certainly messed her up enough to have sex with a psychopath. And this is where Stu gets really excited about this. And now she has to die because she's no longer a virgin. Those are the rules. And he also remembers, they've got another surprise for her. And he brings in Sid's dad all tied up with duct tape.
Pulled him right out of the pantry.
Yep.
Was he there during the entire party? I don't know. Maybe not.
I hope not, because they were really chancing it if that's the case. That literally. Said, I don't know where they stuck his ass if, But he's all tied up with duct tape, and Stu plants the voice changer in the clone's cell phone in Mr. Prescott's jacket pocket, and they reveal that they plan to make it look like he, kind of broke and went on a killing spree on the anniversary of his wife's death, and ultimately end up finishing things by stabbing Sydney to death and shooting himself in the head. And then we get a super disturbing scene of Stu and Billy taking turns stabbing each other to make themselves look like victims. This is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do like that because Billy stabs Stu and he kind of gets him. And then he's like, all right, my turn. And you can tell that Stu is kind of annoyed how bad he got him. So he's like, Billy's like, yeah, just remember, stick to the side and don't go too deep. He's like, okay. And then he just kind of gets him back like as equally as he got. And it's just like, you guys are picking the worst time to fall apart during this.
Yep. And then Billy returns the favor multiple times over. Still, Stu only got one lick in. Only one lick, but Billy...
apparently that scene or that moment where they're stabbing each other is apparently way longer in the like kind of now lost uncut version.
Okay. And I'm sure they had to cut that down just to get that R rating.
Absolutely.
At the time.
They did that. Yeah. And at the beginning of the film when Casey Becker is hanging there, originally that was a bit slower of a shot, but they gave it like that cool 90s zoom, which I think is better.
Yeah.
And then also Casey's boyfriend, at the beginning, like in the unrated, apparently, like you see like all of his insides like fall out instead of just being out already. It's pretty
gotcha. Brutal. Yeah, that'd be a little extra gross. But yeah, no, I get them trying to take it down a notch for the rating. So yeah, Billy, he tells Stu to go grab the gun while he unties Pops, but the gun isn't where Stu left it. That's right, motherfuckers, Gail's back. She describes an alternate ending to their story where she saves the day and Sid can get behind that. She's finally on Gail's side, realizing that she was very wrong. Yes. So this is where Billy's like, I know something you don't, as she tries to shoot him and can't quite get things to work there. He ends up kicking her through the open front door and into a porch post. And he leans over her body and says, works better without the safety on. And he backs up a little bit. First of all, cracks his neck extra hard after saying that. That is loud.
Yeah, it was crazy. Probably happened when he fell down the stairs.
Yeah, he could be another one that needs a trip to the chiropractor after this film. But he backs up to finish her off with the gun, but Stu realizes that Sid and her father have vanished because he's been distracted by all the shenanigans going on with Gail. This is where the phone rings and we get this awesome banger of a line from Stu. Should I let the machine get it?
So good.
He's
so good. I love
stupid.
Matthew Lillard.
Oh, God. Billy answers the phone, and it's Sid with the voice changer. Are you alone in the house? She asks. And I love how throughout, the sequences with Billy and Stu without the costume on, clearly their voice is combined with Jackson's voice. So you can tell it is them. In this moment, you can clearly tell it's Sid. So Billy's pissed, and then she
so pissed.
Oh, he is over the top angry.
Where are you at? Like he's unhinged at this point.
Yeah, and then she lets him know that she just called the cops and let them know it was them. He yells at Stu to go find them, but Stu's not doing too well with his wounds at this point.
Yeah. I think you cut me too deep, man.
Yeah. Instead, he tells Stu to go ahead and take the phone and talk to her. So, clearly he can keep her on the line. He can try tracking her down. And we get this glorious bit where Billy takes the phone back to rage at Sydney and then throws the receiver at Stu's head.
Oh, you hit me with the phone, dick.
Yeah.
Also, right before that, I love when Billy hands Stu the phone and Stu is like dying. He's bleeding everywhere. And just so politely he goes, hello, like answers it like so chill. And he's like, did you really call the police? Yeah. Oh,
my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me.
So upset. What's your motive, Stu? Peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive.
Yeah. So Billy starts looking for Sid in the hall closet, but he's distracted by Halloween still playing on the TV. And it's the end closet scene where Laurie jabs the coat hanger in Michael's eye. And this is where Sid comes tearing out of the closet in the ghost face costume, and she stabs Billy in the chest a couple of times with an umbrella, which is
and the
great.
first time. So a fun little behind the scenes thing. So when she comes out, she had like a pad, but then when she stabs him again, like she missed the pad completely and hit Skeet Ulrich. So that reaction was legit.
Ooh, nice. It feels pretty damn real. So he's knocked out, and she strips off the costume and throws the gun at the front door just in time for Stu to get his second win and come charging at her out of the kitchen. They tumble into the living room, and they do this little flip where she rolls onto her back and flips him off of her. Oh God.
Also, shout out to Sydney for just like committing and putting the whole costume on instead of just coming out with the umbrella. She's like, nah, I'm just gonna do all of it just to mess with him. Also, she's lucky police didn't show up then, otherwise she would have probably been arrested.
No, she probably would have been gunned down at that point. But they do their little tumble, and they're struggling with each other. She knees him in the balls, but he smacks her across the face. Then they flip over the couch and into the coffee table there. And he pins her to the ground, telling her that he always had a thing for her. Well, she smashes his head with this vase, and while he's dazed on the floor, she sends the TV crashing down onto his face with an "in your dreams." It's such a good death. And after Stu fries, because he's clearly being electrocuted, in addition to having a heavy ass CRT drop on his face, because you remember how heavy those fuckers were.
Yeah, those things were a pain in the ass to move around.
Yeah. That was probably only like a 27-inch TV, and you always grabbed a friend to move one of those because you were going to drop that sucker otherwise.
Yeah, it was like moving a refrigerator.
Yes.
Those were heavy duty.
They were ridiculous. Now you can take, like a flat screen like the one behind me, which isn't super big, but you can like one arm that thing.
Yeah.
But the "in your dreams" line, he fries. She walks back to the front hall, and she kind of slumps down between Billy and Randy. And she's startled when Randy wakes back up, and she's like, "Oh my God, Randy, I thought you were dead. I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin." Yep. And Billy pops back up and punches him in the face fucking hard, and tries strangling Sydney. And you get this great "say hello to your mother" line. And that just enrages her, right? And she jams her finger into the wound from the umbrella, and he screams in pain. He's like rising up to stab her one last time. And that's where Gail gets her clean shot, and she shoots him in the shoulder, blowing him off, back off of Sid. And she gets the great line of, "Guess I remember the safety that time, you bastard."
Yeah. So great.
It's so good because she's clearly in pain and just pissed off.
Yeah, she was in a car accident and is also probably concussed.
Yep. Her back's probably not doing so hot from getting blown against that porch post.
Yeah.
Yep. We got Sid, Gail, and Randy standing over Billy, kicking him to see if he's awake. And we get the great line from Randy: "Careful, this is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare." And true to life. This is where Billy pops up, and they all kind of scream a little bit, but Sydney shoots him in the forehead and says,
Point blank.
"Oh yeah, great shot too. Not in my movie," she says. And then they're all super startled when Sid's dad bursts out of the closet that she was in. I love how she didn't even take the time to, get him free of the duct tape and everything. But she asks Randy to help out with that. And Randy, he's so roughed up from getting shot in the shoulder himself that he can't really do much. And then we get a shot of Dewey awake and alive being loaded up into an ambulance. Thank God for that.
Is one of my favorite things about this. So in this movie, he gets stabbed in the back and then gets taken away, and he's obviously alive. And very, very minor future spoilers. but Dewey has a limp for every other movie after this.
Oh yeah,
which is very cool. Like it's a cool piece of continuity that it's like
I love that they committed.
Damage.
Yep. Yeah, they committed super hard to that part of the story, and good for them. I love how this series, the films just build on each other with the lore, and it works. So we get him being loaded up, and we cut to Gail finally getting her big exclusive. And I don't know who she found to be her little crew there. I don't know if they're teenagers that just happened by or what. But she's
Kenny's
running.
Body is probably still lying in the field. She's just like, give me a camera guy right now. Still banged up, like beat up from the car accident. She's like, no, we got to do this right now.
Yeah, and I love how they are allowed to wander through this crime scene filming.
Yeah, this like still active, very active crime scene.
Yeah.
And like earlier, we didn't mention it earlier, but the part where where Gail is talking to Kenny about like there's a killer on the loose and Cotton Weary might not have killed Maureen Prescott, and she's like, if I can prove this, I can save a man's life. And Kenny like sees like good in Gail, and then Gail's like, do you know what that can do for my book sales? Just she does not care. She's like, I want to win a Pulitzer or whatever it is that reporters win. But oh man, it's so perfect.
Yep, and we get her with this newfound crew, basically doing a dry run of what she's going to say in her piece. And as the camera kind of moves up and shifts focus off of the house into the distance, and you hear her say, "Okay, let's walk it back, and we'll do it." And they kind of fade out, and we get this one final flash of Ghostface before credits. And the credits do that super fun thing where they have, images of the characters along with the actors' names. And I love that they brought that back for Scream 5.
Yeah, me too. That was a very nice touch.
Yeah, it's something that you don't see every day anymore. And a fun little callback. But yeah, that's Scream 96. Yeah.
So good.
Oh,
it's so crazy to me that Wes Craven did this movie and reinvented the genre that he was already once a king of. Like it's so crazy to me, and it just obviously solidifies him as one of the best horror directors ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Horror came back in a big way throughout the late 90s and then the aughts. And you definitely have this film to thank for that.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of other, good ones here and there too. But I feel like without this, it would not have been the same.
100% agree.
Yeah. And then again, this spawned a great franchise too that's still kicking all these years later. Yeah, man.
It's so crazy to me that a year ago we had a new Scream film, and 1 year later there's one coming out in 2 months. Like in each year we have a Scream movie. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that 14-month turnaround feels like there was a shorter one, of course, between Scream and Scream 2, because I was a freshman in college then, seeing Scream 2, but Yeah, man. I'm happy that they were able to get this new one out so fast, but hopefully that doesn't affect the quality. And there's a few people that are certainly trepidatious about it because of that. And then some people that were displeased by the most recent trailer just because of things that they felt weren't quite so Ghostface, namely the shotgun in the convenience store.
Ghostface has had a gun in all of these movies at one point or another. Maybe not necessarily in costume, but it's bound to happen eventually. I think Ghostface with a shotgun is cool.
Oh, me too.
And it's playing on the whole thing where he says, "I'm different." Like this version of Ghostface is supposed to be different. So forget everything you know.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this one plays out. I know Prince Jackson has this theory that this could be this whole cult of Ghostface thing.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm
Interesting.
curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I love
He's,
all the stuff in the trailer of like the big giant shrine, and it has like so
Mhm.
many little Easter eggs in that little bit that you see. Like Tatum's clothing are in there from
I
when he got
know.
killed. The
I don't
TV
know.
that was dropped on Stu's head is in there.
And
Like
then
tons of
the
stuff.
Ghostface costumes from all of the killers all lined
Yeah,
up too.
so
Yeah.
cool.
I have no idea how somebody would come by all of that. Maybe some of
I
them
don't
are
know.
replicas, who knows, but yeah, I can't wait to see how this plays out. And, keep them coming. Do part
Yeah,
7 and bring Nev back. Uh,
absolutely. Like
you know,
I can totally understand why Sydney wouldn't be involved every single time, but at the same time, like Sydney is like, and Nev Campbell, I guess more to an extent. Nev has paid
mhm.
her dues in this franchise, and she
Oh
deserves to
yeah.
be paid fairly. So you get like
Hmm.
the argument can be made and is happening that you can't do a Scream film without Sidney Prescott, but also Sidney Prescott kind of is the franchise.
Yep.
So you know,
And who knows? Who knows? We could get a little surprise.
yeah,
Just saying, it's I wouldn't put it past them. For whatever reason, I had no idea we were getting Skeet Ulrich. Again, future spoilers in
yeah,
Scream 5.
that was
Um,
crazy.
yeah, I did not expect that, and was happy that that didn't get spoiled for me too. So yeah, if you are watching these for the first time, sorry, because
Sorry.
just kind of spoiled that. But I can't imagine why you're watching this if you haven't, watched these films to begin with. But
Yeah.
I mean, good for you, I guess. I don't know. Uh, Aaron, any final thoughts on Scream '96?
Man, this movie is so fun and so like it's not necessarily a comfort movie, but it is one of those movies that I have seen so many times growing up that I feel like it has earned its spot as a comfort movie. It's just like, oh yeah, I'll just throw Scream on in the background while I'm doing something, just as
Sure.
background noise, and then you can stop and just like watch that really cool moment. The
Oh,
performances are so much fun. Like the cinematography is great. The score is awesome. The use of all the references for all the other movies, including the amazing score from Halloween, is so like expertly done, and it is expertly done because it's Wes Craven. So
oh yeah.
yeah, I love this movie so much.
Yeah, it is so quotable and
Mm-hmm.
so many iconic bits here and there. Just fucking love it. Um, and can't wait to continue on this little series with the show and see how it all comes together in March. Looking forward to that for sure. Aaron, if you'd like, where can people find you?
You can find me pretty much anywhere with the at or backslash Aaron Roots 427. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, all the places that you would find somebody who's just trying to make entertaining content for everybody. I've made a lot of YouTube videos recently. I have mostly been doing movie trailer reactions, but it's a lot of fun to do. I like getting my
Yeah.
friends in here and just talking about movies and guesting on other people's shows and talking about movies, clearly. But
Yeah.
yeah, if
Well, keep
you
that going.
like comedy or you like just hearing about nerdy stuff, I'm your guy. Let's hang out. Let's talk. Let's chat.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, look forward to more of that. And I'm sure at some point or another, we'll try to get you back on too.
I would love
Um,
that.
yeah. And again, thank you so much for the logo treatment. That's
Oh, of
super
course.
dope. I was not expecting that, but we'll make that the logo for 2023 for sure.
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Aaron. This has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode, but until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.